What's up, guys? Okay, so you've probably seen all the bodybuilders on the internet. Their calves, a lot of their calves are disappearing. Top pros, amateurs, what's going on there? Let's talk about the UK Arnold. The predictions. A couple people dropped out that should have been there. What's up, Chris? Man, how you doing, brother?
What's up, bro? What's up? What's up?
Nothing, man. You staying busy?
How's this thing going to turn out? Who's going to show up?
Yeah, let's start with that, and then we'll roll on the calf thing. I mean, so we got Andrew Jack, Martin Fitzwater. A lot of people automatically thought Martin wasn't going to show up just because of everything that happened, but he's showing up. I mean, why wouldn't he? I mean, I think he's not doing the social media stuff. And you got Brandon Curry, Keem Williams, Hassan Mustafa. Okay, who didn't show up was Nick Walker and Mufada, right? Okay, so I don't think Nick travels out of the country. I don't ever see him going out of the country. I don't know if he's been out of the country ever in his life. I'm not sure. I might be mistaken, but he doesn't try. He usually does like the New York Pro or like the Arnold Olympia. That's like what he'll, I think these other shows, he's like, I'm beyond that, right? Since he's a top guy. I don't know what your thoughts on that are, but I mean, like, listen, when you travel, like, it's hard. I mean, you got to go over there. You got to bring certain compounds with you. I know have you been to the UK ever?
Yeah, I've been there lots of times. Yeah.
So, I mean, I remember I went to the UK, and my friend told me at the time, hey, don't bring anything over there, like, at all. Like, even your testosterone prescription or anything, just laws are different. It can be just, it's different. So don't bring your prescription testosterone over there. The 10 days you're over there. I said, okay. And so when I went over there, I mean, they check you shit pretty well too, especially if you're a bodybuilder. I think, they're not, some people might not be able to get stuff over there, what they need the last, 10 days, because, I would assume these guys are showing up at least a week before the competition if it's in the UK, right?
Yeah, it's funny. I never did the European tour. I never competed over there, but I did a lot of guest posing and various expos, etc. And I always brought my gear. Honestly,
never a problem.
No, in fact, there was one time, I can tell you a story. I went, I think it was in Croatia.
But this was pre 9/11 though, right?
No, I'm not. No, this is like 2002, 3. I ain't got it.
Oh yeah. Okay. I'm thinking of some. Yeah, you're only 4, yeah.
Like, we had color TVs, we had internet.
No, dude, you're only like 5 years older than me. I'm not saying you're old. I'm just trying to think of the timelines. Like, okay, they checked my stuff good when I went there. So
no, but so I went over one time in Croatia, and they pulled me aside because they put my stuff through the scanner or whatever after I landed.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I wonder how this is going to go. They opened it up, and I had my stuff literally right on top of my clothes because I wasn't trying to hide anything. It was just there. I didn't bring excessive amounts. I brought like what I needed, right? Which really, talking about 3 or 4 bottles of things or whatever. And they opened it up. They looked at it. They literally closed it and go, all right, man, you're good. I was like, cool, thanks. And it wasn't a problem. So I don't know the rules now. And if that is an issue, obviously that'd be very difficult to deal with, right? Especially if you're talking about being over there for, a week or 10 days or however long. That's a long time, and it'll definitely affect how you look. So, maybe he's just keeping himself out of hot water. He's making enough money doing what he's doing. I mean, I think from a legacy perspective, if you look at the guys that did compete in those, throughout their career in those, I mean, it was a marker for their career. And it helped them. I mean, the earnings are the earnings. Back in the day, the earnings, you would win like between $6,000 and $10,000 for first place. Right? So the majority of people weren't doing it necessarily for the money, but so.
And also with Nick, he's real particular about things. I remember, I think it was at the Arnold Olympia one year. He wanted to his sponsor. He didn't want to be at the booth like before prejudging or before like prejudging the finals or something. And he was telling them like, no, I don't want to be there because it's going to affect my peak. And I'm like, dude, like Ronnie and Jay would sit there all day, like, you know, and meet all their fans. So that was like a couple years ago, and a lot of people didn't like that as fans because, like, dude, we're coming to meet you. You won't even like show up at the booth because you'll miss your peak. Like, if you're a professional bodybuilder, I mean, that shouldn't mess with your peak. You're dealing with people. That's your job, right? You know. So I think that's one of the issues too. Like, he's real particular about, you know, maybe he's scared, like he's not going to be on point. But I think a lot of these guys are going to look back like, I should have done all these shows. You know, you're one injury away from, you know, not being able to compete or bodybuild, and take advantage of these shows and do them, man, right?
Yeah, I agree. And as far as the fans go, look, I mean, that was a particular issue for me. I made sure I was always on point for the fans. I recognized who paid the bills at the end of the day were these fans of mine. And then beyond that, I was a fan to begin with, right? So my first opportunities to go to these big shows and meet some of these iconic guys, I tell you, it moved the needle big time with those who treated me well versus who didn't. And then for the rest of my career, it became a focal point for me. So that is a tough balance between what, you know, I remember leaving the expo the first time, FIBO, and the first time I went, and I was with Gunter. We were in the same car, and at the time, Gunter, I think he just won the Arnold, and so he beat Ronnie, and you know, he was all the buzz. I'm going to tell you something, man. He showed the first class representation of how to be a man of the people. It took us an hour at least just to walk from where we were at our booth to get out of the building. He stopped for every single person, took every picture, signed anything they asked, and had that beautiful Gunter smile. And that set the stage for me as a young guy looking at what he was, right? Because he wasn't going to be Mr. Olympia. I think he knew that. Most of the majority of people, I mean, understood that. So then what was his angle? His angle was going to be the man of the people and you know, make his money that way. And he made plenty of money as a result. So, yeah.
Yeah, I always liked Gunter a lot, like his physique. And then I saw him at a couple of shows, like you said, he was always smiling, talking to everybody. Where a lot of the other guys were like, kind of like, oh, I'm too good for this, maybe not engaging with the fans. Like, dude, like the fans are like what's paying your bills. The fans are buying the magazines, buying the tickets. So I think a lot of people, you know, a lot of people are dumb and young and have their ego, but you know, the people that took advantage of it, like you or Gunter, like, you know, that's a big deal. You saw the business aspect of it.
Yeah, bodybuilding is an interesting sport, man, because, dude, I know a lot of other pro athletes in other sports, right? And it's funny because when I was jacked up, when I was competing and you had a physique of that level, dude, even they were like, dude, man, there's something about the male physique when you have it at that world-class level that everybody holds in high regard. And the downside of that is that people can get extremely arrogant. You know, it's because they get so used to those accolades, kind of people coming to you and like giving you like, oh my God, you look amazing. And, and it's really, I think it takes a special person to be humble enough to manage that in a manner that retains humility.
I think people giving you stuff too. I mean, I was never on the level you got to, but people would give me stuff all the time. Like, here's free gear, here's free this. You're competing at a show, let me send you money. Like, it was different. Like, I always tell people, like, you know, even prepping for like national shows, I had people sending me money. Like, I didn't even know who they were. They're just like, hey, I want to see you do good. And it was like you built your own fan base, and whether it was through like magazine or DVD sales or whatever, and people would just like send you money, and it was very different. And I don't think these guys have that now, where people just send them money, or just, there's still like the stuff like, hey, but I think the problem now is the coaching stuff. Like, these top guys, they get coached for free, right? So they don't like paying coaches anymore. So they'll get a coach that may be starting out, and like these new coaches, they're on these guys like hawks, dude. They go after them. They're like, hey man, I'll prep you free. I'll do this for you. Dude, people have literally offered Sam Sulek money to prep him. Like,
Yeah.
I will give you money,
Yeah, of course.
Chris, to prep you. Like, it's crazy, right? Because they
Yeah.
know their business will blow up if they're saying, "Oh, I'm coaching Sam Sulik, right?" And he does decent or whatever. So, I had a lot of issues with clients that were at a higher level that were like, "Well, this coach will do everything for free." I'm like, "Great, go to that coach." Like, he's been doing it like a couple years. I've been doing this a really long time. So you got a lot of those new coaches kind of like spread in there, that the old school coaches like the Chad Nichols, George Farr, all those guys, even Hani, kind of like they're not really in there anymore because a whole new wave of coaches came in there too. And it's real. I think a lot of guys expect, I think, remember, I'm not sure if you remembered Matt Jensen, because I know you left bodybuilding for a while. But I told everybody, I was like, this guy's going to come in. He's going to prep all these people for free at first. I remember he had like Nathan Diasher living with him for free. He was buying his gear. He had to hook up to like IGF, Increlex, giving it to him for free. His wife was cooking his meals. And then Dallas McCarver too. That was one of his good friends growing up. And basically that's how he built his name off Dallas McCarver. And people was like, "Oh my gosh, this is a great coach. He's an awesome coach." When he wasn't. He would give the guys on their list tons of food and tons of drugs. And I would do consults with a lot of people he coached. And I'm like, this is way too many drugs. Like, you need to be taking like 1/3 of this. This is way too much. And he coached a ton of people for free at first. And he went after big names. And he would like coach them for free, buy their stuff. And I always told people that. A lot of people didn't believe me because that's how people are. And he was very good at marketing. And that worked for him. If you want to get your clients that way, great, whatever. And I said, he's going to get a bunch of people sick, and then he's going to dip out. And people were like, "Oh, you're just a hater of Matt Jensen, this and that." I'm like, I'm not. I know what he's doing, and I've seen clients come to me from him and what he's having them do. And a lot of people got sick. One of my clients that came to me from him, he wasn't a competitor. He just wanted to be Jack, this Iraqi guy, right? And he came to me and he's like, "Hey," he's coaching me. I want to take a different direction. He's simming over his list. I'm like, "You're taking all this and you're not even competing. How long have you been all this?" I was like, "Go off everything, dude." I was like, "You need to get blood work. You need to get it checked out." This was like 3 weeks later. And he's like, "Hey man, I've thrown up. I feel bad. This. I was like, "Go to the ER." So I didn't hear from him for like a week. And I was like worried. I'm like texting him. So he texted me. He finally texted me back. And he said, I'm in kidney failure. I think they can fix me with dialysis. They said I might not need a transplant or to stay on dialysis, right? So he stayed in the hospital about a month, and I was in touch with him the whole time. And he was eventually going to come on the show too. I could still probably get him on eventually. And he had him taking so much stuff, dude. Like, his blood pressure was through the roof for so long, it destroyed his kidneys. And so Matt ghosted after that. He was texting Matt, "Hey, dude, like, even though like he left him as a coach, I'm in the hospital, like, from all the stuff you told me to do." And it was an insane amount of stuff for a guy not even competing, bro. It was like 10 times more than anybody I ever coached would even have taken. And so what he had to do was he went to Iraq finally and bought a kidney for 20 grand and found a doctor and a facility to get a transplant. He had to stay over in Iraq for like, I think it was like 4 months because, who knows where the kidney was coming from, but, it was like you can go to these other countries and buy organs, and then you find a doctor, find a facility, and they'll do the surgery, right? So he was over there like for 3 months, and he finally got the transplant because he got out of hospital.
You said Iraq, right?
Yeah. 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 That's where he's from originally. His family was from there. I think he was born there, and then he moved over here at a very young age. But his family knew people in Iraq that could hook him up with a kidney for 20 grand. Instead of doing dialysis forever and being on the list here for years, not knowing if you're ever going to get one too. And they've taken a lot of factors too. Like, when my friend had to have a liver transplant and he was bodybuilding, it was hard to get on that list. And that's a whole nother story for my friend that had that. He passed away eventually though, but from something else. But yeah, I mean, he had to pay for a kidney, and and Matt got a lot of people sick over the years. Yes, he had some good clients, but they were already like top notch, like Hani did. Pick the top notch guys that if anybody prepped them, they would have been great champions. He had like Sean Clarita. He had, a lot of these guys that were already amazing guys. And you give them, hey, here's some more food, here's some more drugs. Of course, you're going to get better, right? There's no magic formula. And then people would rush over to him, and I would get a lot of people filtered out from him because they go over to him and they're like, this guy is not a good coach. Like one of my clients that came back, I coached for a while. Then I was like, dude, go see if the grass is greener on the other side. Go hire another coach for a while because like I'm giving you a lot. Like I don't think you understand the value. He came back. He's like, yeah, man, I hired Matt. It was awful. Like he would tell me like I'm training legs. I have bad knee pain. Just work through the knee pain on hack squats and just all this silly stuff, bro. And so that's what he did. He got a lot of people sick, and then he finally dipped out and left bodybuilding completely. He made a ton of money while he did it because he started a supplement company, a vitamin company. He built up a business. So when he came into it, he wasn't doing it for like, oh, I love this. I love bodybuilding. I think he competed as himself, but he just wasn't a good bodybuilder. But he looked at it like money wise, and he made a ton of money. And then he split, like dropped all his clients I think it was like this last year or two, and just left. Right. And then eventually people found out because I was making a lot of videos on TikTok all the time, talking about the guy, because I mean, I wasn't like bad mouthing him like, hey, he's this horrible person or this and that. I didn't know him personally. I'm just like, this is what he's doing to people. If people don't understand, you're going to get sick. And then he had all these people underneath him. He was coaching too, to become coaches that were working underneath him. And basically a lot of people getting diets too. His wife was just sending out, and they were all the same diets, all the same updates, and they kind of compared, and it was like they found out. So you got kind of caught up in all that. And there's a lot of these people that come in like that and coach, and they rip people off. They're getting cookie cutter programs, and you just can't coach over a certain amount of people. It's just not possible, especially if they're competing at a competitive level at all. So I'm not sure what you heard about him a lot, but I mean, I had a lot of people come from me from Matt at the time, and now he's gone and doing something completely else.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't in enough to really give you, like, I wasn't aware of all the issues per se. I just saw the name floating around here and there. I mean, people come and go, and I think at the end of the day, man, these men, men and women that are seeking to compete and do well, you got to have some level of just basic logic. You've got to come into it and look at things objectively and go, okay, does that make sense? And the interesting thing about it is today with the internet and with ChatGPT, and there's enough people publishing information about kind of what they do. I mean, just the information that we've spoken about on this show multiple times gives you a level of, kind of like basic logic, right? And it's funny because, like, I think in one of the shows that we did, there were some comments from some guys. I had spoken about how much sustenance I did, and I said the most sustenance I took was 3 shots. And it's like, the reason why I said 3 shots because sustenance comes in 250 milligrams. That's it.
Yeah, they didn't believe you.
And so I did 750 milligrams total of testosterone, the most I ever did. It worked. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it worked phenomenally. I didn't see a reason why, because I was winning. I was getting big. I was gaining size. I'm getting to the top level of size within the IFBB. I wasn't a size issue. My point is, though, that there's enough information that people are speaking about now openly where you can have, some relatively good understanding, and especially when things start getting crazy. If someone comes to you and says, look, you need to be on 3,000 milligrams of, I don't care what it is, you just need to research that and think about it and be logical, right? And don't be afraid to challenge as well. I'm not saying that, a lot of these coaches, like we've spoken about, will say, look, just do what the hell I tell you to do, blah, blah, blah. Well, there's a certain level to that. I'm not talking about carbohydrates or proteins and things like that. I'm talking about on the drug side. When you're getting into these massive levels, you just need to be sensible about and that's it. I really think I kept myself out of a lot of hot water because of that.
Yeah.
I didn't have the information that's available today, and because of that, you had to kind of dip your toe in and figure it out and see what worked and be patient. But back then, that was why it took. If you look at the age of top level, let's say top 5 Olympia guys, right? And by the time they got there, they're doing it for nearly 10 years at the pro level before they got there. Why? Because of trial and error and fixing things and amending things and working through things while also your body's maturing. And a lot of these guys just need good mentorship. It's tough, man, because a lot of these men get into this because they're troubled anyway. Honestly, a lot of bodybuilders are men that are seeking solutions in their lives that are bigger than just bodybuilding, and they're looking for resolution.
Yeah. The problem is too, like I got it also, people will come to you, and if you don't tell them to take enough drugs, they'll go somewhere else because they're like, you're not telling me what I really need to know, and you're trying to hinder me. You're just giving me some BS cycle. I'm like, listen, you can't run out of the gate starting at, 10 IUs of growth hormone and 1,000 milligrams of test. And it's hard to explain to them, listen, you got to titrate up if you want to do this long term, which, most people at a very young age, they're not thinking. And I'm talking about 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old kids are, starting full blown cycles. And it's cool now to post stuff. The acne, I'm sure I've sent you a couple of things. They're like posting, like, it's like a flex to have all this acne and side effects. And I'm like, it's not a flex. It's not okay, but it's really hard to tell them, hey, listen, like, you'll look a lot better in like 10 years if you do this the right way, in 2 or 3 years. And a lot of the guys now, the top guys, they got big in 2 or 3 years, but you can see in their physique, like, you don't see the same fibers, you don't see the same separations. It's a big, full, busting out look, but it's just not the same look. And let's go into Mafada. Like, he I don't know why he didn't do it either. He gave his speech at the Arnold, and I think it took away from his win, which was a little odd to me. He was kind of defending Martin in a way. Like, listen, you got to take. Martin turned himself into we're not getting into much of it. Martin turned himself into a victim in all this when he did all this stuff to, lose all these sponsors and whatever, and then he tried to turn himself into like a victim where, Mo gave this kind of speech that took away from his victory and kind of made it about Martin, and it made no sense. And a lot of people were like, I don't really understand why he did that. I'm not sure if you heard the speech, but it was pretty much just kind of defending Martin in a certain way. I really didn't understand that move, but he's not doing it either. And so, you've got, Jacked, Fitzwater, Curry, Akeem Williams, and Hassan Mustafa. So that's like 5 guys, maybe a couple. I don't know if a couple more are going to be in there, but that's what I've got so far. I think Andrew's gonna be the clear winner. You agree?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think the only discussion with regard to first and second. Now, I preface this by saying I give this opinion based on the best that I've seen of any of them, right? So my point is that if I'm comparing Andrew versus Martin, right, then it's the best that I've seen of both of them, and when they stand side by side each other in all the comparisons. I've not seen a Martin yet in his best that can beat Andrew at his best thus far. That doesn't mean that he can't overtake him. I think Martin has got a phenomenal foundation of physique, right? But there is a lack of maturity that still is you can see in the density of the muscle and the thinness of the skin, that it's just going to take a few more times before it to get raw enough and kind of nasty enough before he starts to be able to compete at that highest level. Not that top 5 is not highest level. He's already doing phenomenally well. But I believe if Andrew, by the way, I just saw Andrew post something a couple of days ago, and he looked kind of gross, bro. I
think he's a clear winner, and I think the second place which we thought Brandon should have beat Martin at the Arnold, right? So you got, I think the second place is between Brandon and Martin. Martin's only really hit it, I think, like one time he was like really on point, and then all these other times he just was off. The whole sweating and spilling over and all that stuff. So man, I hope Brandon comes in there, and Brandon's response was really cool. You know, he's been in this game forever, dude. He's been doing it a really long time. He's been competing a really long time, and he's kept his body improving and staying really good, because after a certain age, it's really hard to get certain body parts, you know, keep firing, nerve damage, and all that kind of stuff. So he's done a really good job. And so then you got, you know, the places.
He's a very smart guy. Brandon he's not just a meathead going in there throwing weights around. I mean, the way he articulated that question after the Arnold about his ability to increase his thigh, you know, his legs. I mean, that I love guys that are meticulous about the process and thinking through all the elements of healing and how your body grows. So I agree, man. If Brandon is on again, I think he was on at the Arnold USA.
Yeah.
If he brings that same package, I believe that he could take second, you know, over Martin as well.
I think that's pretty much for the Arnold. It's pretty much, it's cut and dry pretty much. I want to talk about calves disappearing because it's happened to a lot of the top guys, classic guys, Wesley. They started out, they had calves and they disappeared. It's not that they're not training them, it's nerve damage happening. Okay. I got a couple different theories, right? So this happened to me just about 4 years ago. My inner calves just started disappearing, right? But I had lower back injuries like L1, I have like 3 discs that are herniated and completely just destroyed. And I deal with the chronic pain all the time. I know you have back issues also. And that compresses on certain nerves, and it goes, the inner calves are more susceptible to the outer calves. And so that's what you usually see collapse easier. And some of the guys try to inject and jam stuff in there to kind of blow them out a little bit, and others just leave them alone. But a lot of the guys, and it's not that they're not training them, but why are they getting this nerve damage at such an early age? Usually you would see it at a later age, you know, over 40, right? Or over 35, 40, the calves, you know, would start atrophying a little bit. And, you know, no one with massive calves pretty much kept their calves until a really late age, you know, even Dorian. And I had great calves. I worked really hard for them. They weren't genetically there. I worked really hard to get my calves. And then when they disappeared, it was a big bummer. But I believe these guys are getting big too fast, and it's compressing on nerves. I think the amount of GH they're taking and with the size they're packing on so quick, it's doing something, the spine that is compressing it right away. That, like you said earlier, it'd take 10 years to build a physique when they're rushing and building in 2 or 3 years. It's a rushed built physique, and certain things are getting compressed because it happened. Big Ramy also, and a lot. Plenty of guys. Names can keep going on, and I know you've seen it too. And I just believe it's a combination of the getting big too fast, too quick, and of course compressing the spine a lot. A lot of the guys, they'll do lifts just for social media. They might load the whole thing up and injuring their lower back at an early stage in their career. You might not be symptomatic because a lot of people that get MRIs have herniated discs, and they're just not symptomatic or problematic at the time. But most bodybuilders do have back herniations or bulges. It might not be just affecting you yet. So I don't know what your thoughts on that is.
Man, I have what's called a spondylosis thesis. It's a break in the basically the neck between the joint on my L2 and L4, and that's been like that since 2000, since actually 99. I've had it through my entire bodybuilding career. I've gone through phases where it flared up, and I would get neurological issues like sciatica down predominantly my left leg, but it goes to both legs occasionally. And it's interesting because when I had multiple times, when I retired from bodybuilding and I got into MMA and fighting and training jiu-jitsu every day, I had multiple times been in, when you have big legs like that, if folks understand how to leverage leg submissions, it's a lot easier to submit a person with bigger legs because they're just bigger. You're able to clamp them up, and they have this move is called a calf slicer. And people would get me in calf slicers multiple times, and it's really just becomes like a pain tolerance thing as to whether or not you tap, and then you can get out of it if you don't. And I wouldn't tap, and as a result, both of my calves are damaged, and my left one more than my right. And it's very interesting because I didn't care while I was in it, and now that I'm back building my body back up, I'm like recognizing that this inner part of my calf, the one that you're talking about, that the inner head, is not.
So yours is gone. So yours is gone too. It's not the same as it was when you're coming. Like, it's not coming back like your shoulders and arms, like everything else, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting you're bringing this up because I associated it to that. Well, I damaged them whenever I kind of like did this jiu-jitsu thing, got calf slicers or whatever. It's like my right bicep. I got in a bicep slicer one time, and it burst the vein, that main vein that comes down your arm. It burst it. So as a result, my right arm doesn't have, my left arm still does, but my right arm, it's gone because it broke that vein, and then it deteriorates. It goes away. Yeah. And so I just assumed it was the same thing with my calf, and maybe you're onto something with regard to my back issues. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it is. I mean, a lot of guys didn't know what it was, and since I experienced it myself, and in my MRI, stenosis really bad. If people don't know what stenosis is too, it's like a canal, and your nerves are like caught in there. I mean, they can go in there and open it up, but dude, back surgery, neck surgery is really tricky. It's not like a knee or shoulder. Like, you don't know what's going to happen afterwards. You don't know if you're going to get better or you're going to get worse, or it doesn't do anything. So that's why I never got my back cut on our neck, and I'm in chronic pain in both, and I know you have probably are too. You just learn to live with the chronic pain, and it's just part of life, right? It's just it hurts.
Man. Everybody that I've seen has had back surgery, bro. It's like over, and it's still like right now I'm doing the bodybuilding thing. I enjoy it, but let me tell you, I still thoroughly enjoy doing jiu-jitsu, and I don't want any fusion or anything to go on. I mean, like, if it gets to where I can't walk or whatever, then of course I'll look into that. But right now I'll just endure it. And I don't take pain medicine, by the way. I think that's another element to understand with regard to people that are listening. I'm a big proponent on not succumbing to taking pain medicine of any form. Look, at 50 years old and back to training hard and heavy every day, my body hurts a lot. Right? More than it used to, but I do not take these pain medicines because at the end of the day, all the damage to my kidneys or my liver, whichever, depending on what you're taking. And then of course the addictive nature that everyone kind of succumbs to, man, pain is an interesting thing. It's a very mental, you can just manage it. And for me, that's just how I do it.
The problem is they stopped working too. I took opiates for 5 years, man. The first year, man, it was amazing, dude. I could train, this didn't hurt. I could work more hours in the day. When that pain gets to you too, you get more irritable also too. So I was like, man, this is awesome. Yeah. But it's like a tree branch. It keeps growing, and it needs more and more and more. And there's no good outcome. I understand if you're like in your 60s or 70s, maybe, you need to get on pain management. But if you're young and these doctors, like I had these doctors like put me on, the pain management doctors, along when I had a few surgeries, and they didn't tell me like, hey, this is going to happen, or it's going to be really hard to come off. Like, and then when all that
for life, bro.
Yeah. And then when things got strict, they started getting in trouble because the whole opiate epidemic and all that, which didn't make any sense because all the people that were passing away was from street fentanyl. They like, okay, now you can't have the pain meds anymore, and you're into full-blown withdrawals, and people have to find like whatever they need to not get sick until they can actually try to get off, which that was the hardest thing I had to ever do in my life, was get off that stuff. It was the sickness, and the longer you want it and the more times you withdraw makes it harder and harder. Back to the back, the L5 and S1 and the sciatic, that's the inner calf medial head. It's more sensitive to the neutral loss. That's why we see it more so than the outer head. The outer head will still stay there. That's why on the inner head it's more susceptible to that atrophy. And that's why we all see it there in people, and they'll keep their outer. You go pictures of Rami when he first started. His calves are decent, and they went away. And then Urs and Wesley, these guys are young, and their calves are already gone. They're not coming back, right? And someone said earlier about shooting calves. Yeah, a lot of guys shoot their calves, right? I don't know competitors what they're shooting it in their, when you're doing it, synthol or whatever. But I knew a lot of people that were putting synthol or shooting their Winstrol, test prop in their calves just to get that swelling effect. Or I know when you were competing, you guys had Esiclin, and I'm not sure if you ever messed with that. And then when that went away, there was Nolotil, and Nolotil would kind of do the same thing. My best friend Chris, he did all of it when the one that passed away. And I just didn't understand. I'm like, dude, you're paying like, I think at the time was like $50 an ampule for Esiclin or Esiclin, whatever you want to call it. And it only lasts like a day. And I'm like, dude, it will put the insert on your bicep. Your bicep looks great for a day, but then it would go away. But he had just a lot of money just to spend. And so, and then when that disappeared, because I guess it was coming from France, then they switched to Nolotil. And Nolotil was, they used it in surgeries for like infants. So if you had like a heart or organ you were doing surgery on, you shoot it in there, and it would make the organ expand. And that's where it came from. It's crazy what bodybuilders find to put in their bodies to like do these little things to etch. And we knew competitors that were using tons of this stuff back in the day. And now, and then it switched to eventually synthol, which was just a brand name for MCT oil, lidocaine, and alcohol just in a bottle. That's all it is. And yeah, so the guys are shooting their calves a lot of guys. But the problem is, if there's no muscle to shoot it in there, and you're just shooting something like it, you don't know how it's going to drain or whatever. A lot of people talk about Andrew's calves. He just has a really high calf insertion. People's like, he doesn't have any calves. He does. His insertion is just really, really high. And I know Andrew has got criticized for overusing the site enhancement oil in his arms and shoulders and calves and everywhere. And yeah, you can tell he has, and there's no striations there. But on his physique, it was just like kind of like Flex Wheeler, Chris. I mean, it still looked good to a certain extent. I know Flex eventually he went a little too far in his arms, and it was just like, okay, you run like the symmetry and beauty of your arms from doing way too much, because it's addicting too, because more people think it's better. So I'm sure a lot of the guys you were competing with was using it a lot too, right?
Well, I mean, no one talked about it, right? Everyone would, it was very difficult to gather this information back in the day. The thing that for me, like all of those products that we just talked about, I never tried any of them. What I would inject would be like the things I was going to inject anyway, which was, like you said, what an anabolic or an androgenic that I was taking, and then just trying to leverage it to create inflammation, and then you grow into that inflammation. I can tell you from my personal experience that it worked. It's like
100% works.
Yeah, like your body will grow into that swell. It's an interesting thing later on. After I retired from bodybuilding, I got into motocross, and I had some injuries, and I had some interesting injuries that created inflammation, and the muscle changed shape after that inflammation. And I was like, oh, it woke me up to the reality of how your body manages inflammation, how it can change. I believe it stretches out the fascia, and that can change the shape of the muscle. And and what Fletch used or Kevin or any of those guys that had these really bubbly, I don't know. I mean, like, I think that there's some of these guys are just genetically dispositioned. Like Kevin never had lack of striations in his shoulders at all. And his shoulders were amazing, but they were world class and crazy. It's like, it was inconceivable that you could produce shoulders like that naturally, but they just were.
Well, Esiclin didn't blur lines, so that's what Kevin was rumored for, buying up all the Esiclin. The other guys didn't have access to it. He would get all of it to make sure he had it for his shows, and everybody talks about it, like his competitors. So it looked good still, and I always say, like, listen, if you want to use something and it still looks good, and you can't tell you're using them, I'm fine with that person using it. But when it got into the synthol era, and you had Nasser or somebody with his rear delts like all the way out to there, you know, and they counted off that year. I think it was at Olympia, and people that was training with Nasser at the time, like Larry was this guy named Larry. He was on RX Muscle with us a lot. He was training with Nasser some, and Nasser was like, "Hey, I think this is giving me all cancer in my body." And then he would still keep doing it, like 5 mLs here, 5 mLs there. But the addiction to something like needing to feel that muscle filled up and full. And I tried it in my arms a little bit when I first met a certain person that was really pro synthol. And yeah, it made my arms like bigger and fuller, and they look great. And they got out of control looking, and after 6 months, I didn't need to use it anymore. And I think it helped a little bit, but just putting gear there already, I think helps. Like you said, like I remember using like, especially certain compounds, like that didn't have esters attached, like Winstrol, the milky one. And then like Test Prop was a great one, I think, to have cause that irritation too. And whatever you put in your shoulders, calves, quads, that helped a lot. I know that all old school guys, really old school guys, they only did in their glutes. And once guys started to find out, hey, we're using a lot of stuff, we have to rotate places, and hey, it causes inflammation, and it does, I believe, cause growth there. And you got a lot of people that's like split down the middle. People's like, no, it doesn't cause growth. What's the science behind it? I'm like, it 100% does, because I did it, and you did it too. We know it does work.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the issue for me with synthol, I really didn't understand it at all. The thing that I feared about it was it looked like that the whatever you were injecting, it looked like it created like a coagulant or an actual like the substance itself seemed to harden or something inside, the way that a lot of people look. And that scared the hell out of me. And then in my mind, I was like, eventually that stuff's going to break down and need to be filtered out of your system. And then, then comes kidney failure or problems with the kidneys. And, for me, look, I was lucky enough where I didn't lack a body part per se. If I lacked anything, it was my upper chest in my younger years that began to finally develop toward my later years. But I wasn't absent so heavily of these big body parts that needed to come up, right? But to each their own. That you're always going to have someone finding or searching for the cheat code, and that's just the way it's going to be, and especially a sport like this where it's so very unique and unregulated in that.
Yeah, it's funny because I knew all about synthol because the guy that introduced me to it, educated me in it a lot, and then I would have certain clients maybe using their arms for a few months at a time, and okay, your arms got fuller. I didn't have clients using their shoulders because it would blur their shoulder. Even if you used it for a little amount of time, it'd still blur the shoulder, the striations. But calves and arms, it worked great in. If you used it right, just a little for a certain period of time, it looked really good. And then you had the guys that would overdo it. And then another, site enhancement oil would come out, and they would put like maybe like a little something else in it. I remember Painless Pumps come out. Steve DeLuca, I don't know if you remember him. But I think he hosted like one of the first USAs or national or something like that. But so Steve DeLuca back in 2017 or something, like he got in contact with me and was like, hey, you want to help me promote this stuff or whatever and help me with my Instagram a little bit? I'm like, yeah, sure. And so we made an agreement like payment wise to promote the product, and I would kind of help guys that were emailing, because he was selling so much of it. And some of the top legends in the world were using it, a lot of it. And he would even tell me like certain names. And then when I started doing the Instagram, I was never going to expose everybody. That'd be really shitty. But the names I would order, people were shocked. I mean, I had top men's physique guys, top, pro bodybuilders. One of the best in the world had to use it in his arms all the time, or they wouldn't stay full. He would lose like an inch, so he had to always use in his arms. And it had different stuff in it too. It wasn't as harsh as a synthol. There was still MCT oil in it also, but some other stuff too. Eventually, Steve DeLuca passed away, and they stopped making it. I had a friend that used to make his own synthol when we first got started. He was already a nurse at that time. Then he became an anesthesiologist, and we got together about 5 years ago and produced a site enhancement oil that has certain stuff in it that's like actually like healthy for the muscle, that can make it grow without causing that stuff to just stick in there. And I really sell it on my website. I don't push it on anybody. I just tell them like, hey, if you want to use something, this is something I know. Like my friend that's a really smart anesthesiologist doctor, like he helped create this. It's his company, and I just resell it on my site because I believe in the product. But it works extremely well. My clients, I've used it on their arms or whatever. They put it like use it for 3 to 6 months. You could put a solid inch on there that looks great. But the ones that keep going overboard, this one guy, dude, he would buy a bottle and he would use it in like a week. He would load his shoulders, traps, arms just to look pumped up for like an event or whatever. This guy was crazy. And I told him, man, your kidneys can't handle like all that at once when you're putting your body. It was a 100 ml bottle too. And he was just crazy. But now I think the guys are using so much gear, a lot of them don't have room for the site enhancement oil because like you said, they don't need it. It's already being filled up with enough oil because most gears mix either with sesame oil, MCT oil. It's pretty much the same thing because they're putting so much volume in the muscle. Like Greg Valentino, a lot of people claim him using synthol. He was like, no, he used to shoot a bottle of test propionate in his arm at one time. Or he would get he talks about it all the time on RX.
Like 10 milliliters?
At one time, yeah. At one time with the big
imagine how that would feel, bro. Like honestly.
Dude, I asked him, I was like, dude, weren't you in the worst pain possible? He's like, no, it didn't bother me. And then he would get the big balls EQ. Remember, I think it was 50 mLs, 50 milligrams. Yeah. And then he would dump like, 10, 15 mLs in his arms. And that's how he got those crazy arms and shoulders. And I'm like, that would just hurt. But he was said it didn't even hurt that bad. And eventually a lot of us saw the documentary where he had to go in there and get that removed, and he had that big infection in there. And now to this day, his arm is messed up because he had to get a bunch of his muscle removed from that tissue also. And we saw the guys in Brazil that did it. They were using mineral oil, and that would just harden up like a rock in there. All those people you see online that it's just like tumors everywhere. Yeah. And they come from a very poor area or country, and it got them attention. They would do it. A lot of those guys passed away from doing it just after a few years because that's a foreign substance in your body, and they passed away. The Indian guy that did it, there's another Brazilian guy, crazy.
Yeah, this is what I'm talking about with regard to, kind of just you gotta be logical in this process. I mean, honestly, I'm looking here. I mean, at Greg Valentino's pictures. I mean, like. And this is the definition of like obsessive, like
I think they were like 26, 27 inches. I mean, we talk about on RX all the time. He doesn't deny what he did at all.
I mean, I don't even like not only does it just looks stupid, like it doesn't even make any sense. Why I question a man's intellect, honestly, at this level, right? You're just being dumb. And I understand the obsessive elements of it. I mean, I'm a professional bodybuilder, right? I have there's a portion that's built into me. I mean, you can't be a professional bodybuilder without being kind of obsessive, but you also just need to be somewhat logical too. I mean, I think one of the benefits for me was I always took the athletic approach to this whole process. I enjoyed. I think Branch Warren once quoted it correctly, right? He's like, I'm a professional bodybuilder because I enjoy training. I don't, he says, because I love to train. He goes, I don't train because I'm a professional bodybuilder. And I think that's exactly the Ronnie Coleman's. I mean, look at Ronnie right now, right? I mean, waddles his way into a gym to do some reps, doing stuff. He's not building muscle, but he's staying alive. He's doing what he loves to do. And that's, for me, that's a lot of what this took is that I wanted to be a professional athlete of other sorts, and it clearly wasn't going to happen. So, I won my first show. I'm like, well, shit, man, this is what I'm going to do. I think I can do this. So
that's how a lot of us got into it. I was playing soccer at a pretty good level, and then I got some knee stuff that put me back for a while. Started rehabbing my knees, lifting weights, and I put on muscle usually. So I was like, hey, let's get into it. And I think a lot of guys got into bodybuilding for that reason. Now, since bodybuilding has become so popular or competing, you got a lot of guys getting into it. They're not coming from a sports background. They're coming from, they're bodybuilding out of the get-go. So they never played sports or anything. And I think coming from an athletic background makes you a better bodybuilder because you've got that discipline in you. And I just think I know a lot of the guys today, they never played sports before, anything like that. They just started bodybuilding at a very, very young age. Let's knock out a couple of these questions. This guy said, did old school guys use more orals today than guys, which would explain why they only wanted to inject glutes, as they weren't as many injections due to oral use? Do you want to go first? So I'll go first. No matter.
I mean,
Your opinion.
I don't think that's the case at all. I mean, I think there's that same balance exists in orals versus injectables today. You know, I think just the reason why I started the glutes, because back in the day, like early days, right? I mean, that's when you took a shot, you put it in a large muscle, right, to help dissipate the injection, and your glute was the natural place. And then we began to realize that you build scar tissue. We've all seen it when someone turns around, hit the rear double bicep or back, you know, hits a lat spread, and they got that big knot on the top of their glute.
Horns on each one of their glutes. Yeah, that's bad.
And so people started moving around, and like you had said, it was an evolution. Like, oh shit, actually I'm putting it here, and that muscle is responding in a way that I can leverage, right? Get it bigger.
Yeah. I don't think so either. Like people would use orals back then. The bodybuilders I knew and I grew up with around Metroflex and Golds in Arlington at that time, a lot of the guys, they would just throw some pills in their mouth, not knowing how much. It could be 4, it could be 5, 6, or 7. Like, because I you know, when I started the gym, I befriended a lot of the older bodybuilders because I wanted to learn. It's different today. A lot of the young guys, they follow the other younger guys. I go, that doesn't make sense. If you get into it, find somebody and get information, whether it's coaching or anything, from a guy twice your age that's been through bodybuilding, knows what they're doing. A kid the same age as you just has great genetics, and you're getting information from them thinking they know something that you don't know, and that's not the case. So I agree too. I think they're probably using more orals now, if anything, because the programs now, they're using a lot. I mean, a lot of the injectables, they're using more of everything. So I don't think it's a difference at all. Which bodybuilder from the past had veins close or similar to Nick Walker's Varicose, or is Nick an outliner for his leg veins so big and full? The only person I can remember is Paul Dillette's chest veins, pretty much. I don't know if you can remember any people that had the wacky varicose veins.
You know, actually, interestingly, Gunter Schlierkamp had some pretty nasty veins in the later years throughout his lower legs as well. He had some varicose veins. And I actually started to develop them back in the day. And it's funny because when I stopped bodybuilding, they like dissipated, they went away. But you know, it can just happen. The varicose veins are weird. You can get them removed. I think Nick could easily actually have them removed, and it's not a very invasive process. You know, could clean up a little bit of that look. I think the irony of it is, you know, it's Dave Palumbo-esque. I mean, when Dave was walking around, I'm talking about, you know, pre, you know, 2003, 4 era, because his body started to change and wear out a little bit. But man, that guy would walk around. The first time I met him was in Washington State at the Emerald Cup, and this was in '97, I think. Dude, this guy walking around like he was Mr. Olympia, like everybody was flipping out about his freakiness. So my point is that it's an element of bodybuilding that I know on stage we kind of go, ew, right? But the deepest part of us true hardcore bodybuilders, we're looking at you, that's kind of just cool. It's just, I mean, the nasty part.
You got the veins, which look cool, because I was always super vascular, but then the varicose veins, you can't help them. A lot of them is genetic too. Like Nick Walker, I think I talked to one of my plastic surgeon buddies, and he said for Nick Walker to actually take care of what he needed to do for his calves, it would be like a year process and several surgeries. It wouldn't be as easy as a lot of people think. That's why he hasn't done it yet, because I mean, anybody, dude, that is very unattractive, I think, and it takes away from the physique. But I think if it was easy to just go get it done, procedure, you're out a month or two and you're back, he would have done it. My plastic surgeon friend's like, dude, it would be like a year-long process where he would need to take time off, have another one done. They just couldn't, just take them all out at once. And so that's what he said. And I think, you know, Nick says it doesn't bother him. And there's no way it couldn't not bother you, because I remember Gunther too, and it was getting, I think, believing in like inner thighs or something, but it didn't look that bad. It wasn't that distracting. But Nick's is very distracting. You had Paul Dillette that had a few on his chest. It wasn't that bad, but I think Nick is one of the top pros ever that has had, I think, the worst varicose vein in his lower legs. And what can he do? It's there. It's genetic too. My mom, she had some varicose veins too. I remember she was going to have removed at one point when she was alive, and it bothered her. And then I don't have them yet, but I see certain places that looks like, hey, I can develop them eventually once I start hitting the gym hard again. But I think vascularity looks awesome, but the varicose veins isn't like a cool, attractive look. But Scott, I heard Rich Piana used constructive grade silicone, and he learned about it from the training scene and the strippers in LA. It's possible he started with PMA, but it was too expensive. He switched to it. I knew Rich personally. We actually had conversations about this. First, he used it in his bicep because he tore a part of his bicep just to fill in the other half, and it worked really well, and it looked great, right? And then he got addicted. And yes, he was going to this training in Mexico to get fillers done. And it was mostly PMMA that he did. And he started doing it in certain places like his arms, his shoulders, because when he was a mutant, he still looked really good. And that's when it started. But then it got out of control. But that also is what kind of made Rich. You would see him in person. He looked like a freaking cartoon AI character. Like it didn't look real in person. But the way he did it, it wouldn't be good for a bodybuilding stage, but in person, it looked crazy. And, we talked about his tattoos, and he shaded his tattoos also, like on his shoulders, to make it look like more cap delts and triceps and everything. So Rich did everything to the absolutely extreme. And when you're putting all that PMA in your body, like you said, it's a little different than synthol. The PMA can break off and kill you when you're putting all this junk in your body. And he did it excessively, and he spent an insane amount of money on it. And then people would always say, oh, Rich did a bunch of, no, that wasn't synthol. And a lot of people refer back to a video he made when he said, no, I tried synthol once. It didn't really work. It was a little painful, and that's it. And so people's like, no, he's a liar. That's all synthol. And no, it's not. So you're partially right. Yeah, he had this training in Mexico that was doing, and he would go down there constantly and get it done. And kind of everybody knew. And he told me about it. He told a lot of other people about it in his circle. So that's why you would always see him. He would never do like a front double bicep because it looked really awkward. And I don't know if you ever competed against him, or y'all's times overlapped or anything like that.
I believe it's either the 03 or the 04 USA he did. And of course he did the Malcolm in the Middle show with me as well. We knew each other pretty well, actually. And I met him before he blew up, before he created his social, image, if you will. And he's just a normal, cool guy. Obviously he did have, just like all of us, the desire to be a high level competitor, etc. But his physique he was a structurally pretty large fellow, right? His hips were very big, and so he had to be exceptionally large in order to make it all work. But that's exactly right. I would imagine that's why you didn't see him, walking around and posing per se like you would see a bodybuilder do, because it didn't work. But all this stuff is fascinating to me. I know I exited for a long time and didn't pay attention, but I don't even know what PMA is. It's
a filler like girls do in their lips and face. It's just a filler. And he did massive amounts of parts, and it was extremely expensive. I mean, he was spending like $10,000 plus at a time getting body parts filled over and over, and it stays there forever. It doesn't go anywhere, right? And also we spoke about the time we spent together, because I was with 5% after I quit competing just for a year or two. So we did a lot of events together for his company, and he talked about bodybuilding. He's like, man, I loved bodybuilding at one point, and then I was like going to the USAs and nationals, and I started hating it, just because like you're working and putting all this money. I believe one of the last shows he competed at, he put like everything he had into it. It was like the money, the time, the effort, like went all in. You know, those search shows. I mean, you went in 100%. Like, dude, I'm doing everything I need to do to look my best possible. And he was like, "You're just winning a stupid plastic trophy or a card that doesn't mean, like, really doesn't mean anything." It did met. I think it meant something back then when you guys got your pro card. Even when I was competing, it meant something if you got it. Now it's everyone has it. You know, a fit model, they give out thousands and thousands a year. So it's not like, hey, the top 5 guys a year gets it. But he was just like, hey, when he made that character, like the same thing. Rich was a really cool, laid back guy on camera. That wasn't Rich Piana. That was his internet personality. And a lot of people it was always funny because we talked about it. A lot of people like thought that was him and was like, yeah, motherfucker, wake up and do this. And I'm like, dude, Rich doesn't eat 10 meals a day. He literally eats like 2 meals a day when we hang out. And you know, he used to ask me to come do videos in LA with him at the time. I just had my daughter, and they always use the fake plates. They would load on like 4 plates on rows, and they would be all like styrofoam plates and all that kind of stuff. And all of that, like the 8-arm workouts, like he made a video on, like, you know, do a shock workout once a month for 8 hours. That was satire, but everybody believed it and they were doing it. I'm like, dude, no, it's satire. Rich was like trolling y'all, I guess. And I guess he didn't expect people to believe that, or all these different things he had. They were just for fun. They were satire videos. You can't go train arms for 8 hours. You would be sick, and it would take you like a month, like 3 weeks to recover from 8-arm workout. But he was great at marketing, and he was one of the first to really blow up on YouTube. And he made an insane amount of money. And even, you know, we were at certain seminars before, and Rich had to go speak. He's like, he would still be nervous when he was at the very top. Like, what should I say, man? What do I think I should talk about? I was like, dude, you're Rich Piana. Like, talk about anything. You have the biggest fan base ever. The lines would be, he would always have the longest line at the Olympia or Arnold or anywhere he went. He was just that guy. And it's unfortunate, the downfall of him, because, you know, the girl he linked up with, I knew her personally, and she, you know, you were around some girls and they kind of bring you down. She was one kind of got him into some harder stuff, and that was the downfall of him. And I spoke about it in the past, of his everything, you know, the opiate use, the other methamphetamine use, all that combined, I believe what led to his passing. And it's unfortunate because he had this persona he kept up that it was not him at all. Like, he was a really laid back, nice, cool guy, like you said too. So that was my experience, you know, from him. They said you could get it from rapid muscle growth. Okay. Derek's front double is so reminiscent of Rich's that I have to think he uses PMA in his arms, which is unfortunate. They awarded him. Okay, so Derek, he got accused of using PMA in his arms because this certain clinic he was, I don't know if he's working with them or just promoting them. They were doing PMMA in certain athletes and stuff like that. And I know a doctor in Houston too that was doing it with athletes. And then he was doing all the crazy stuff with the bikini girls, like Botox in their obliques to atrophy their obliques, so their waist would come in smaller too. So I was talking to Phil Heath one day, and when Rami did his, I believe it was gyno surgery, he did a lot of other stuff too. Like, I think he did a little lipo and like fat burning lasers and all that. And Phil was like, that's not bodybuilding to me. You're having plastic surgery to look better in bodybuilding. And I'm kind of like, you know, like, I understand where you're coming from, but a lot of guys and a lot of girls today, the competitors, they go get liposuction. They can't get, you saw that Mike Israel guy, that big YouTuber, you know, he just had his love handles, liposuction, and drained out and tightened up and skinning, just because that last little part wouldn't go. And I don't know how you feel about it, but I think it reaches a certain point. It's like, dude, if you're having to have like plastic surgery on your body to look a certain way to get on stage, I don't really think that's bodybuilding at a certain point.
Yeah, well, I tend to agree, but I think the reality of it is that, you know, you're getting into the realm of, like, we're all doing all these things to sculpt our bodies, whether it's injecting in certain body parts or do whatever in order to get a shape to win or monetize, right? One of the things I wanted to address with regard to his question and on PMAAs and Derek Lunsford's biceps, man, there are a lot of people. Look, I'm one of them. I mean, like my bicep is not. It's just not a very peaky bicep, and they're by the way, they're both like this. One's a little bit more, but at the end of the day, they there's when you're on stage relative to some of these other guys that have the Ronnie Coleman bicep as an example, right? When he flexes the tendon goes up to here, and then he ends up with this massive peak at the end, and it looks crazy. It's phenomenal, right? But Kevin Levrone and I, like, that was one of the, with his shoulders and how they were capped and shaped relative to his arms, I was shaped similar to that, right? And so that's as a result, I looked to that physique as my, that's what I was chasing. Look at Kevin Levrone's biceps when he, the first Olympia, as an example, in 1992. Okay, when he took second to Dorian Yates as a rookie, I mean, phenomenal. And then look at him in 2000 and choose the year, right? Where his arms they're just bigger, they're fuller. There's no peaking in them at all. Like, and I don't think that you're finding it's an issue with, like, he didn't put PMAAs in it. I don't think, you said that he used some of these other things to expand, maybe. But my point is that Derek Lunsford is not a giant human. Derek Lunsford is a I mean, I don't know what weight he wrestled at, right? But it was certainly under 200 pounds, right? And the guy's 5'6" or whatever. So, once you get to a certain muscularity with that frame, it's going to have these different effects. I discount these issues. Like, it's like his lats, because his lats are so full from the front. A lot of people think that that's where he injects all this stuff. I don't know, man. But I think genetically the guy's got some just pretty crazy full lats, right? You maybe compound that with some of these other things potentially. But I don't know, man. Regardless of that, he's Mr. Olympia for a reason, twice. And we can get into comparing them to other Mr. Olympias and all this different stuff. Yeah. It is what it is, right? I can tell you, if I won Mr. Olympia, or if you won Mr. Olympia, you would have a certain number of people just saying, yeah, he's all right, but he's not a Ronnie Coleman, he's not a Dorian Yates. And you know what? I would agree, bro. Like, I looked up to those guys. You aspire to be that. So, yeah.
I don't think we'll ever see a Ronnie again. You got Samson Data now that's way more than Ronnie, like off season. But it's not the same look when that Ronnie looked in the off season, or just anything anywhere close to Ronnie. Just Ronnie had that insane look. This person says, Monica Brandt did a recent interview where she says her lip injections from 20 years ago were bothering her recently, so she had it surgically removed. She actually talked about that when we had her on. So we had her on a couple months ago, and she talked about that she did something to her lips that she was really unhappy with, and she either was going to have it removed or in the process. So maybe she just did that. So imagine how guys like Rich, Boston, and now I was very close friends with Boston Lloyd, and Boston would do anything and everything to his body. That I met him about 10 years before he passed away, and then we were doing a podcast shortly before he passed away for almost a year together with another guy. But Boston was one of these guys that didn't take life serious. He would put anything into his body. He would get all these, because he had a forum, gear forum that people would pay to go onto, and people would send him companies, like just tons of free gear, all these different companies. And Boston would have farm grade gear. He wouldn't touch it because in his mind, he liked using the underground gear first. He had a weird mentality. And then he had a syringe sponsorship. They gave him free as many syringes that you'd want. And he would use the same syringe. Like, he would literally tell people this like 5 or 10 times before he wouldn't use it anymore. I'm not talking about just the insulin one, because I've done that with GH before, like done, the same needle and put in there, whatever, a few times. He was using like 23 gauge syringes in his biceps and would use them multiple times, like dull. He was just crazy. And I always told Boston, he contacted me, I think it was like 2012, and I did a Sacramento show, and it was like, dude, your arms are crazy, that show. What did you, this and that, what'd you put in them? I was like, I didn't put anything in them, dude. That's just the way they look there. But we became friends, and he asked me to kind of help him out for the next show. And I was like, and that's when he just made that video that he got popular for. And I was like, dude, you're on way too much stuff. I can't help you. I think you're headed in the wrong direction. And over the years, I always told him, Boston, you know, you're gonna pass away at a very young age. And he would just kind of laugh it off and all that. He didn't take life serious. He reminded me very similar, my friend Chris Jolly that passed away. It was the same situation. He would use so much gear and other stuff too, and he would just kind of laugh it off. They did not take life serious. They weren't thinking about, hey, this life, and they really didn't give much thought to an afterlife. Boston was atheist. His dad was a Christian. I remember we had conversations. He'd be like, yeah, man, when it's over, it's over. So it depends on your mindset too. Like what are your beliefs and how you live your life too, I think. And that's a big thing we can get into on another episode about, like you see a lot of these bodybuilders, just like Dexter and Phil Heath and these guys, where they, after their bodybuilding career is over, they are like, hey, I gave myself to Jesus. I got saved and I'm following a different path now. But it took them a while, and that's perfectly fine. But people are realizing there's more to life than bodybuilding and putting all this junk in your body. And when you start, as the older you get, you start thinking about like, hey, there's more to than just this life on earth. And we'll get into that in another podcast too, though. But that's true about Monica Brett. But
yeah, Monica, by the way, I think she's a gem of a human. She's a really lovely person, and she is a follower of Christ. But it's not just a tagline for her. She lives it, and she tries to really help people. Very humble. People don't remember now. Obviously, it's been a long time, but she was the first fitness Miss Olympia, and she was phenomenal, man. She was an athlete as well. She wasn't just a figure competitor. She had skills that paired with that, and she was iconic. She took fitness to a new level with just how much she was publicized, all the photo shoots that she did, and the covers that she had, etc. And very diverse in that regard, like muscular enough to where she certainly was about fitness, but still very pretty. And well put together. Yeah, she's a great human.
Yeah, like I said, we had her on I think 2 months ago, and she's awesome. And I just grew up seeing her in all the magazines. I wasn't, with or around when you were competing or whatever, the cross paths at all. But I would just see her in all the magazines. I think that was like the perfect example as just a great how a woman in competitive competing should look. And it passed that extreme where, I mean, she had a beautiful face her whole career. It never got hard or anything. Right. So these girls today, they don't care because they're all doing it. So they just don't care. And like I said, a lot of them, they just have complete plastic surgery. One of my friends did here locally. She messed her face up with a lot of gear, and she just did a full reconstruction of her face, like nose, cheeks, chin, everything. And so it is what it is. This guy said, we'll do a couple more comments and then wrap this up. Rich's arms look 10 times better with PMA in them. If Derek was doing that, he was doing it wrong. And I also think Derek would be that much of a lunatic to inject himself with caulking. Okay, so Rich arms did not look 10 times better. They were a lot bigger, but on stage, when he started doing that, he was still competing. You could tell, and it didn't look right on stage. So on stage, not good. Off stage, yeah, he looked, like I said before, he was a freak. He looked crazy, but he would never hit poses like a front double. But
yeah, that's one of the things that I think a lot of folks don't understand. If you're not close enough to bodybuilding, it's like when you're standing in person with two different people, right? Let's say like a Nick Walker versus a Phil Heath. When you're standing there literally at the gym with them and looking at them, it's very difficult to believe that Nick Walker would not beat Phil Heath, right? I'm just throwing names to be emphatic, but because in the gym, like these guys, like look so freaky, right? Whereas the guys that are on stage that look really, really just incredibly aesthetic and beautiful, they don't have that freaky in person look. It's very interesting. I mean, I remember the first time I saw Flex Wheeler in person. First of all, he had a shirt on. I was just like, dude, did he lose weight? Like where is he?
Is
right?
is he sick?
Yeah, he's tiny looking. I mean, because the guy never competed at like 260, 250. The guy was like 220. You know, he might have gotten into the 30s when he was at his best. But because he didn't need to, like that big, bubbly, small joint insertions, just amazing. So
yeah, you know, Phil was around a while. I've been around him numerous times. I know you were probably around him a lot since you dealt with Hani. And in person, Phil would just wear like a normal muscle shirt, and you were like, okay, yeah, this guy goes to gym, he's thick and all that, but you would never think this guy is going to look like that on stage. And so another one that's really crazy is Sean Clarita. I don't know if you ever seen Sean in person, but you know, he used to work out at Destination all the time, and he would always wear oversized shirts too. The guy's 5'1", dude. He's like literally like 5'1", and he takes all that off. And you got Regan Grimes. I remember the Reno show several years ago. Regan Grimes is like 6 foot, 6'1". He's a tall guy and like huge, whatever, 260, 70, whatever he is. And then you got Sean Clarita, that's like you know, a 212 guy, but he was competing under 212, and he takes all that off, and then, you know, he beats a guy like double his size at Reno because the look of the muscle. And I'm a huge Sean Clarita fan. He looks awesome, but it's just an illusion, like we talked about, the whole small joint, big muscle bellies. That's what is, you know, that's how a lot of people you can look at, and a lot of people say, hey, I want to bodybuild. And you can tell, like, hey, you just don't have the structure. You have really big bones. You have, your hips are wide. Like, yeah, you could get big and jacked and look great in the gym, but on a bodybuilding stage, it doesn't transition that. And we always would see it. I know, you turn pro in the super heavies. You always see in the super heavies because you have a lot of massive, huge guys in the supers, and they look crazy and huge, but once they got on stage, everything was put together weird. Their glutes with their leg, just everything just didn't look right. And I'm, you know, you saw plenty of those guys, especially when you got in that super heavyweight category.
yeah, it's interesting because they would be, in my case, they'd be bigger than me backstage, like no question about it. And then you get on stage and they go, "Dude, you dwarf that." It's like, how is that possible? Like, you know, it's just because under the lights, man, it's that optical illusion. That's what bodybuilding really is all about, is creating those, you know, big with small insertions and dramatic, you know, muscle bellies. Just beauty of it. Yeah.
I think you covered everything. I'll mention this at last just because he's not a bodybuilder, but it's fitness related. The whole Wes Watson thing. I don't know if you followed it. It's all YouTube stuff, social media. But, you know, John Bravo covered it. I'm good friends with John Bravo, his channel. The whole Wes Watson fiasco, going from a guy that got out of prison after serving whatever, like 7-8 years. He started like coaching people, like life coaching, was making millions of dollars doing this, and was like inspiring guys that coming out of prison and changing your life around and doing positive things. He reached a certain level of popularity, and then he just, his true personality come out. Like, money changes a lot of different people, or just shows who they really are, right? So he, you know, the latest news is he had this fiance. He knew her like a month, and he was already out on bond for getting in a fight at this gym with this guy that was almost 7 feet tall. They call him a 7-foot monster. The guy came to the gym. I don't know if you saw that. I'll recount it if you haven't. The guy came to the gym because a lot of people were like threatening to fight Wes because he was calling out people. Yeah, if you want to fight me, come to whatever, this gym in Miami, and you know, whatever, I could beat anyone's ass, stuff like that. So a guy showed up, and the guy set his phone up to videotape the whole thing. He approached Wes, and which was really dumb because Wes had like 5 guys with him. So Wes is talking about how tough he is. He doesn't fair fight him. He gets a weight belt in his hand and like hits him and hurts the guy bad, and the guy is messed up bad. The guy, he ends up getting arrested for this incident, eventually gets out on bond and say, okay, well, he still could be okay. He's probably going to get some probation, but he'll probably still be okay. He has a lot of money. And then he goes on just recently. A lot of people's reported on it. Like I said, John Bravo's been doing reports on this guy for a long time, where Wes has literally been threatening John Bravo, like, hey, I'm going to come find you or send somebody to you, for a very long time. And yeah, he got like 5 counts against this girl, like false, like imprisonment, other related charges, not like, he beat her, allegedly he beat her up really bad. A lot of crazy things, and his bodyguard was there at the time. He wouldn't let her go. Now he's looking at 5 counts, and he's out on bond already. So there's no, he has no bond from the previous charge. So he's looking at like he's gonna serve. I would be surprised if he served less than like 10 years. So this guy literally got out of prison, changed his life, was doing a good job, like whether it was real or fake, motivating other people to like, hey, you can change your life after prison, to going to being such a D-bag. Like, I have this car, I'm better than you. Well, I have Bugatti. What do you have? Like, look at my Louis Vuitton, this or that. And so he was lived for worldly things, and he was just complete jackass. So it made more people go after him and attack him, and he just couldn't take it. And he did some crazy stuff. And this wasn't the only girl. They did interviews with other girls, and it got real messy. And he wasn't a bodybuilder, but he was this big jack guy that gives bodybuilders a bad name, because people associate guys like that with bodybuilder. Like, no, that's not a real bodybuilder. That's some goofball that, is, but I'm not sure if you follow that or not. I just wanted to mention that before we go.
Little snippets of him, online, just, doing his badass stuff, whatever. Yeah. It's whatever. It doesn't really, like, these things are funny. I think that's the majority of bodybuilders actually out there in the world. I tell people, the majority of people, what they associate bodybuilding is not. Professionals don't. The guys at the top levels, they don't, or the guys that are actually serious about competing, except they don't. That's not who they are. It's not the way that they act. And
no.
That you always have a little bit of that, right? And then you get categorized within this thing. And that's, I tell you, just one of the things that bothered me forever was the bodybuilding waddle, I call it, right? This walk that people have. And as soon as they start building some muscle on their legs, they act like their legs are so big that they have to like do this waddle. And I never walked like that, right? And, I always, I did end up over 300 pounds at the end of my career, and I still didn't walk that way. I walked, as normal as I could walk. Obviously, there's going to be a little bit different because you're so big, but that, it's kind of like with MMA and cauliflower ear, right? I did MMA for a long time, dude. I would drain my ears every day, and it's a very simple process. And as a result, I've got little bits of cauliflower ear. I wrestled my whole life too, and I would drain them. It's painful. But instead, they let this stuff build up because they leverage it as a badge of honor, if you will.
Yeah.
It's like, whatever, that's fine, but I'm just someone who doesn't endorse that behavior and these things. This, you don't need to walk around Billy Badass like that. I'm going to tell you, like, the people that are truly bad dudes, like
don't talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah. But, you hype yourself up on a few grams of testosterone, and, becomes so overwhelming that sometimes they just can't help themselves. And don't get me wrong, I can get upset and in the wrong situation, you kind of fly off the handle as well. I mean, it happens to the best people. However, it shouldn't be the standard. You shouldn't be posting online that you're, welcoming people to come and, kick their ass or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just pretty stupid.
I mean, look, the guy showed up. He did it. He got charged for it because he beat him up with a weight belt, and he had his friends jump in too. And he's looking at like 20 years in prison now through this whole girl situation. I mean, when you're living your life like that, good things aren't going to happen. I mean,
Yeah, come on.
you're literally calling out the world to come like mess with you, and people are going to do it because they know they're going to get clout for it because
Yeah.
you're well known. And so it's just
Yeah,
asking.
my dad used to say, bro, if you're looking for a fight, you're not going to look very long. You're going to find
No.
it. And the other thing I tell people too, as far as like, you hear these people like, I never had my ass kicked. I'm just like, dude, I'm going to tell you this. If you've not had your ass kicked ever, then you've just not had very many fights. Because the reality of it is that fighting is so circumstantial. And especially when you're out and about and it's not in a controlled environment, because there's always people grabbing you and pulling you, and then you get sucker punched or you get kicked. Dude, I've been there so many different times, man. It's funny. Like, it's just a bunch of crap. It's a bunch of crap. You can't act like
Yeah,
that.
all the guys, want to act tough, and the ones always talk about fighting and all that. Usually the ones that can't, and the guys that can are the humble ones, and they can fight and they do their thing, whether they're doing it professionally or not or whatever. But I think we covered everything pretty well. Anything else? I mean, the UK Arnold is not too exciting. I mean, we got Andrew winning and a couple other guys we know they're going to fall in place. Unfortunate that Nick didn't do it. I don't know why he didn't do it. Like I said, I think it was from not wanting to travel over there, the stress on his body. He just hit it great at the Arnold, and he's probably thinking like, man, what if I go to the UK and not do as well? I'm going to be scrutinized for it and all that kind of stuff.
It is hard to peak twice, man.
Yeah.
It is hard. You have to deal with the rebound, and you got to get yourself tightened back up. It's really, really hard. The other one I'm interested in is, why don't you think that Hottie did it?
Why didn't Hottie do what?
Why isn't Hottie competing in it?
Is he like I knew that the list got kind of changed a few times. Let me look it up, or just look it up real quick, because I thought he was gonna do it.
Original lineup.
Yeah.
And then the word was that he was out, but
like we said before, Chris, what happened to contracts? Like, these people sign contracts to do it, and then they don't follow through with the contract. So I think, if they do sign a contract, I know you have to pay a fee, because I had a couple clients do that before. Like, certain things happen, or if you have a medical excuse, you can get away. But listen, too many guys do that. They sign up to a show, sign a contract, and they don't end up doing it. They might have to pay a small fee, but man, compete. Like, you're only this age once. Who cares if you're a little off at the show? Like, who cares? Just, you have the opportunity to go to compete in the UK. I'm sure there's tons of fans there that would love to see you. You got to get out of your comfort zone. I understand he might, me and Mama's boy, his mom gets on the internet for him too and makes statements and all that. And I think he lives with his parents now. He doesn't need to. He has a great amount of money, but that's what his little comfort zone is. You have to get outside your comfort zone and do things, especially in bodybuilding, when you have so many opportunities to travel. Take advantage of those opportunities, because you don't know when, like I said, the next injury is going to happen. It's going to end your career, and then you're wishing people are calling you or begging you to go do this show. These guys need to do more shows, and it's hard. Like I said, especially for the bigger guys, it's harder for them to peak. But dude, who cares if you don't peak perfectly for you? Go in at 80%, you're still probably in the running for Andrew. But they don't want to lose to certain people, and a lot of guys on pro level, they strategically pick shows in the year that they know they can win. If certain guys are doing it, they don't do that show. It's really weird, man. It's like, don't you want competition? Don't you want that level? And they don't. They want to strategically pick. And I had dealt with certain clients too. They're like, no, I don't want to do that show. This one class, I don't want to do that show because these three guys that are in it, and I can't beat them. I'm like, who cares if you don't win the show? Just go there and compete, and it's competitive, and you're going to keep getting better anyway. So I just don't understand that mindset.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, not to mention the money. If you think you're a top 3, top 4 level guy, right, it's a nice way to continue, to make some extra cash while you're doing it. You're in shape already. But, it gets complicated, and the perspective of young men versus men that have kind of walked through it is very different. So.
And then we'll end with last thing too, health too. I mean, health too. You don't know how hard the guys are pushing it too, and they might not be healthy. And if they push it too far, even for a few more weeks, they could be jeopardizing their health a lot, especially these days when everything's taken to maximum extreme. So, hey, it's his decision of whether him his team did, and hey, the decision's decision. It just would have been a lot more exciting. But cool, man. I think we covered everything, bro. We went for a while today, hour and a half. So. Good show. Closing out. I mean, guys, make sure to subscribe, comment down below who you guys think is going to win the UK. Arnold, and yeah, man. You have anything else, Chris?
No, I'm good. Appreciate it, man.
All right, brother.
Ready?
Yeah.
All right.
Have a great day. Peace.
Take care. See you
later,
later,
guys. Bye. Later.